What if it rained food? What if Earth was a cube? What if we had 9 lives? What if bits could fly? It's absurd. If money grew on trees, if we didn't have knees, if we walked through life slightly magnetical, it's absurd. Absurd Hypotheticals.
Hello everybody and welcome to Absurd Hypotheticals, the show where we overthink dumb questions so you don't have to. I'm your host, Marcus Lehner, and I'm joined here today by Chris Yee and Ben Storms. Say hi, guys.
Hey, I'm Chris.
Hey, I'm Ben.
And I've had something sort of interesting develop in my office this week.
Was it some film? That was a really stupid joke. Anyway, continue.
Some film. So one of my coworkers, they found a $5 bill on the floor, just like walking down the hall. And normally what I would have done if I found that was like it was like right next to someone's desk, so I probably would have asked them if it was theirs. And then if it wasn't theirs, I would have kept it. But he didn't do that. Instead, he just put it on the table next to the guy's desk, and then he left and just like left it there.
Oh, that's weird.
And so the $5 bill was not the guy that sits at that desk. So he didn't take it either. So now there's just a $5 bill sitting there, and people walk past it all the time and no one wants to take it. And it's become this weird like social experiment where everyone knows it's there and no one wants to take it.
Right, because I feel like you can't take it at this point, right?
Okay, so here's the absolute wrong thing about what the first guy did.
Yeah, he's definitely in the wrong.
Oh, yeah.
Because
No, totally.
Because here's what it is. Here's the thing. It's $5 on the floor, right?
Yeah.
I'm not saying he's wrong for not... Like, you should have talked to the guy like, hey, is this your $5 bill? Is this anyone's $5 bill? No, pocket it. That's what you're supposed to do.
Yeah.
But he's even worse than just, like, ignoring it or pocketing it, because now he's put it on this dude's desk.
Right.
And he's put this $5 bill on this guy's desk. It's like, okay, this is now either, like, if it's his $5 bill, fine, that's fine. But if it's not, this guy now has a $5 bill on his desk that was put there by somebody.
And so it's technically not on his desk. It's on a counter that's next to his desk.
Oh, I thought he put it on his desk, because, like, what do you do, like, if you walk into your office and there's, like, $5 just, like, put on your desk? Like, clearly this means somebody's paying you for something, and you have no idea what that may have been.
Right.
Or who it's from.
I mean, when I first saw it, I originally thought that he was, like, collecting money for something, and people were just leaving on, like, right next to his desk, and for some reason he
Oh
wasn't
my god,
collecting
no,
it.
Chris, no. You have to go into work. You have to go into work and put another $5 bill on top of it. Don't let anyone see you do it. Just put a second $5 bill on there and just see what happens. That's the next step in this.
Just put a little sign. So yeah, do that. And then wait one more week. If they still haven't moved, just put like a little tiny, like, shittiest sign you can find, little sign that just says charity on it, and put it behind the two $5 bills.
Only charity.
Don't specify.
Yeah, no specifics. Just like black text on a white little like paper, maybe even
Yeah.
a Post-it.
Yeah,
and just
I can't decide if a Post-it is better than just like a note card that you like prop up on something.
I mean, then it'll just never go away, because then we've just added, like, a layer of guilt to it.
Right. Well, what's really fun about this situation too is that when it disappears, because it's been there long enough that everyone knows about it, when it disappears, everyone is going to want to know who took it.
Yeah, it's going to be a big deal.
Yeah.
And the person that did take it, they're going to feel guilty that they took it, and they're not going to want to say they took it.
What if it's actually their $5 though? What if they go through their wallet and they
yeah.
realize they're actually missing a $5 bill? But you can't a week
still can't
later
take it.
say, yeah, oh no, that was actually my $5 bill, guys. I realized later. You can't say that.
No, I think you can. I think if you, even like 5 days later, were suddenly like, guys, it's my $5, then maybe, no, you're right. It doesn't sound
You can't
great.
do it. It doesn't sound great. Once you hit that point, you can no longer take that $5 bill when anyone can see it.
Right. So you have to wait until everyone's gone.
Right.
No, stealing it, taking it when nobody's looking is the worst. Is still the worst solution.
Like, people clean our office at night, and none of them have taken it either.
They assume it's for charity.
Chris, so this $5 bill is still there, right?
$5 bill is still there.
You literally, please sneak another $5 bill onto that table.
You really have to.
It's been there for 4 days so far.
Please put another 5 on there when no one notices, because it'll be so good. It's worth $5.
It's worth like $100.
I'll consider it.
Don't consider it. Tomorrow is the day, because after the weekend's a very good chance it just disappears.
Yeah, that's true too.
So you have to do it Friday morning. Like, set your alarm now for 6 a.m. Be the first one in the office.
Oh yeah, I have to get there early.
You have to get there early, put it there, and then leave and come in at your normal time.
And then act surprised.
Exactly.
Okay, I'll do it.
God, I've never wanted updates on something more in my life.
Right, seriously.
You'll get an update next week.
We're gonna have like 5 watch going forwards.
Yeah, this is our new segment called the $5 Experiment with
Yeah.
Your host, Chris Yee's entire office, apparently.
There's a lot of people in our office too. There's like over 100 people.
Well, if they all put $5 down,
I know. All for charity.
that's like over $500. I love it. I love it so much. I'm like just like thinking of all the things you could do to fuck with this situation, and they're all wonderful.
I'm so sad that it almost definitely is going to disappear over the weekend.
It probably will.
But if it doesn't,
It will be amazing.
At what point is it a real amount of money? Like if you put $100 down on it, if you put another 100, so it's $105.
I think that's too much to at least start out with. It has to.
Right. Someone's gonna be like, okay, I'll take this $105 because that's enough for me to like steal it.
Oh yeah, like what's the tipping point?
mm-hmm.
Yeah, what's the tipping point where it's now suddenly a real amount of money? And what's the point where it's like, I'm not going to just take, I don't need $25, but 25 might be the magic number.
How
where it's
bad
like,
is, I was gonna say I think my number's like 20.
I think like 40 I'd say 40. We all have our number.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think after $25 is where I'm just like, okay, now it's silly that this money's just sitting here. It's too silly, and you know what? I'm just going to use this to buy lunch.
Yeah, my point is like where I can buy like a good sandwich and a beer with it, like I think I'm in.
What if you take the 5 and just put 5 singles on the table?
That's actually also incredible.
Just like, oh guys, I just need a 5.
Or like half a row of quarters.
What if it just becomes like a money exchange table where you can just take some amount of denomination?
Yeah, you know, your take $1, leave $1 table.
Like, have you ever, especially if like you go on vacation or something, have you ever just like had like a couple $100 bills and you're just like, okay, I have enough money, but then you suddenly realize like, I don't know if like the things I want to spend this cash on like can take $100 bill,
Right,
like
yeah.
the food stand or whatever.
Right.
Yeah.
And so I like always feel stressed that I have to like break my hundreds, otherwise it's gonna be like, oh crap, now I have to like, I don't know, go to like a bigger place.
Yeah.
Like, I don't know. I love it. We have to move on, but I love it so much.
I'll update you next week.
Yeah, please do. Please do.
Don't wait for the podcast. Just for, well,
Actually, I think do wait for the podcast.
damn it. Now I have to wait. Then I definitely have to wait an actual full week. That's terrible. You have to update us that you have to update us like immediately if you manage to put the $5 down.
Yes.
specifically.
Yeah.
Okay.
That you have to do.
Do I have to go to? I might have to go to the ATM. I don't think I have cash.
Okay, guys. We got a question. Here it is. What if dragons were real? What about them dragons?
Yeah, good straightforward one this week.
Ben, what about them dragons?
So I wanted to look at sort of if we just take, you know, sort of your generic standard European fantasy dragons and just assume that everything, you know, we're going to ignore that whole like could a dragon actually work thing and just assume it does. What's that going to do to the world? So I think the first and the most important question that's going to sort of determine how this goes is how hard is it to kill a dragon?
I would assume pretty hard.
Yeah, well, because if it's hard to kill a dragon, this goes very differently than if they're just like you know, large pigeons or something. Like, so I kind of had to go. I basically looked back through a lot of like different representations of dragons. I went all the way back to the first thing I looked at was Proto-Indo-European myth.
Wait, what was that last word I heard? Proto-European myth.
Myth.
Yeah.
Myth.
Yeah.
I was laughing, and it turns out that laughing while saying that TH sound is not ideal, actually. Yeah, so the Proto-Indo-Europeans were sort of like the like hypothetical prehistoric people of Eurasia. They're sort of split off into a lot of like the European and Asian tribes that we actually like definitely know about. They live back like 4,000 BC-ish. Not cave people. They had like the wheel and agriculture and stuff, but still like, you know, pretty far back there. And what's interesting is that all of the cultures sort of sprung up from these, like this initial group of people. Pretty much all of them have this one reoccurring myth of a dragon/serpent being slayed by some hero. Generally, the hero is like a thunder god or something, and it's not really a straight like dragon as we see it now. It's more of like a big snake, but it's close enough to count it, I think.
So a weaker version of what we consider a dragon has to be killed by a thunder god.
Yeah.
So we're in good shape, is what you're saying.
Right. Well, it's not all bad, because then I went to, so there is the story of Saint George and the Dragon, which is a 11th century Christian story. Originally, it was actually about a different saint, Saint Theodore Tiro, like earlier, like 9th and 10th century, but apparently it just kind of like shifted to Saint George at some point.
No, this guy
What
did
do you
it.
have to do to historically steal someone's dragon kill?
I don't know, but it's pretty impressive, right?
This is the real life Christian version of kill stealing.
Yeah,
in video games.
Serious, it is, yeah. But yeah, and this one is like, there's this dragon it was very like a very archetypical dragon story where there's this dragon lived in a swamp that was like pillaging the sheep of this village. So the villagers like ate a shepherd once, so they started giving a couple sheep every every once in a while as like an offering to sort of like, keep it from killing people. And then all the sheep were gone, so I started giving them like children. And eventually like a princess got put up and St. George came along and saw the princess. And all he had to do was like stab it like once and then like make the sign of the cross to subdue it. And then he tied the princess's girdle around its neck and then it was like obedient. I don't know. It was kind of a weird story.
Old stories are weird.
Yeah. Well, and then so this now like obedient dragon, he leads it into the town and he then proceeded to, he promised to kill it if all the townspeople would convert to Christianity. And they did, so he just chopped its head off with a sword. And that's kind of the story.
Okay.
So in that one, it's not that bad.
It sounded pretty easy.
But to be fair, it did sound pretty easy, but he was literally a saint. So I feel like we still kind of have some element of like, not just like you or I could kill a dragon necessarily. You have to be a particular, like type of person, heroic
Do
person in
saints
order to do
get
it.
powers?
Apparently, man, I don't know. Like, I would call making the sign of a cross to subdue a dragon a power, but I don't know. Like,
I guess there's that. I just like don't imagine like, Saint Peter just like throwing like Thor's hammer across, the valley and smashing a dragon
man,
in the face or anything along those
you
lines.
may not imagine it, but now I am, and it's great.
Yeah, maybe I just haven't read enough of enough religious text to really get those cool stories.
Well, and speaking of, we're going to move on to a more modern, maybe not quite religious text, but it's the 2002 film Reign of Fire. I don't know if you're familiar with this movie or not.
Christian Bale?
Christian Bale and Matthew McConaughey. There are two Oscar-winning actors in this piece of shit.
I remember specifically watching this movie when I was I was a kid.
I think I watched it when I was like 12 or 13. I thought it wasn't all that great then, which is probably a really bad sign.
Wait, which spelling of reign is it?
Reign as in like a king. REIGN.
Ah, okay, got it.
And yeah, it's like a post-apocalyptic movie where like dragons came back in the early 2000s and almost wiped out humanity. From a combination of just there being dragons and then like us trying to like nuke them or something. I don't know. So on the one hand, we apparently like threw our militaries at them and like nukes and stuff, and that wasn't enough. But on the other hand, they killed the big dragon in this movie by just shooting like a crossbow bolt with explosives on it down its throat. So kind of a mixed bag when it comes to like dragon killing. But sort of the running theme throughout all of these is that dragons are like just hard enough to kill that you have to be some sort of exceptional person to do it, whether that be a god or a saint or Christian Bale. So I'm going to say that, yes, dragons are in fact hard to kill. Contentious point. So in that case, under that assumption, dragons kind of can do whatever the fuck they want. Like, they're dragons.
That is their MO.
Yeah. And their main thing they do as dragons is hoard gold. But I wanted to see really why it is that gold is what they hoarded, if there was like a real reason for that and like any myth or anything. And as far as I can tell, there's not really. I think what it really comes down to is that back in the Middle Ages, the church would kind of use dragons as a stand-in for like all of the cardinal sins. Because I think about like, traditional dragon activities, it's like raiding, stealing princesses, lying around on gold, and sleeping.
Coveting thy neighbor's wife. Typical dragon stuff.
Yeah, it's, it's the sins, So I figured that's kind of, similar idea. They don't really care about gold per se. They care about value, wealth. So gold actually isn't, gold is valuable, don't get me wrong, but it's not actually that valuable, all things considered. It's only worth about $48 per gram, which is, that's money, but it's not, like a ton of money. So I try to look out some things that are more valuable than gold that dragons could hoard. One of them is drugs. So meth is like $80 a gram. Cocaine's like 100 to 120 per gram. LSD is like 2,500 to 15,000 per gram. So like you got some drugged up dragons like lying with, like piles of coke, like Tony Montoya, like
Literal Puff the Magic Dragon.
exactly. Other things that are very expensive: radioactive material, plutonium, like $4,000 per gram. And then there's this material called tritium. I'm not sure exactly how it's pronounced. It's basically this like super heavy type of hydrogen that's made when you irradiate lithium. And it's the thing, like self-illuminating signs that don't require power, or like fancy watches that have like the glowing like things on like the hours or like the end of the hands, like that glowy stuff. That's tritium.
Oh, like the stars that I put on my childhood bedroom ceiling.
Not the one that has to charge up with the sun. It's the one that's always kind of glowing because it's a little radioactive.
Yeah, the one that was good that it was not in my childhood bedroom.
Good to know that I used to have one of those watches.
Yeah, I think apparently it's actually not dangerous. I think it's like, I don't remember why it's not dangerous, but it's fine. Don't worry about it. Anyway, that shit costs like $30,000 per gram. So basically, you'd also have dragons like curled up around nuclear towers, which is just a really cool mental image anyway. Moving on, diamonds, kind of a duh, but they're worth a lot. Like 4,500 to 206,000 per gram, depending on the quality of the diamond. So going after those. And then antimatter. So antimatter.
Obviously.
Just pick up a good old bag of antimatter.
So antimatter,
no
this one's kind of cheating a little bit. So I found a number that I found repeated a couple places that was like, it costs like 62.5 to 100 trillion per gram. We technically have no way to store it. We can make it very briefly with like CERN, but that's kind of it. But I figured that...
Is there $100 trillion in the world?
Oh yeah, totally. Yeah. Yeah. But I figured, so CERN is expensive too, so maybe dragons will just like hang out at CERN or whatever. So scientists probably won't hang out at CERN anymore, won't have any more antimatter. But, point is, antimatter is technically the most expensive material on the planet Earth, apparently.
And you can't buy it because there's only $80 trillion in the world.
I looked it up too.
There you go.
And that's if you include broad money, which I think is money for women. I don't know.
So the one problem with a lot of these things that they're pretty scattered and like small, and there's not necessarily like a lot of them. That's kind of why they're, valuable. And sort of the problem that we have for dragons in the modern world is that a lot of money is not really like a physical thing anymore. Like you look at wealthy people, they kind of have, they have stock, they have all these things that make them their net worth high, but it's not like something that you can grab in your claws and carry away. But you could grab those wealthy people in your claws and carry them away. So Jeff Bezos has the largest net worth in the world. His net worth is $112 billion. He weighs 154 pounds. That's about a little under 70,000 grams. So he's worth about $1.6 million per gram, which makes him like the fourth most valuable resource on planet Earth, actually, technically, by weight. So
I'm worth my weight in gold. Wait, no, way more than that.
Quite a bit more, yeah, actually. So I think actually what winds up happening is that it becomes a status symbol to be attacked by dragons because it means that you're wealthy. Because they can apparently sense these things. So I think that's kind of where this all winds up. And I think that Jeff Bezos knows this. I'm going to continue spouting my conspiracy theories about billionaires, by the way, going back to my Elon Musk theory from before. I think
now,
Jeff
when you
Bezos,
say Jeff Bezos knows this,
yes.
Do you mean that he knows he's a dragon target?
Yes. I think that's why he's investing so much in drones. It's the only logical explanation.
And Elon Musk has invested in tunneling.
Tunnels. Also very
Tunnels
smart.
and drones.
Tunnels or getting off the planet. Either one works.
Yeah.
They're coming. Hold the dragons!
That's what I got. Jeff Bezos is worth far more than his weight in gold.
So the dragons are gonna collect all the rich people in the world.
They're going to try to.
Yeah.
I also think that Instagram influencers will fake getting attacked by dragons to make them look wealthier than they are.
Yeah.
That was my other pet theory.
Some internet drama there.
Yeah. So That's what I got. Marcus, what'd you do?
So I'm actually going to keep the hoarding train going for a second. So even though you said we're going to ignore it, Ben, my entire answer is about if dragons could actually exist the way they do.
That's smart.
But so one of the things I did look at was actually hoarding, and so obviously a dragon could hoard, just by its mythos, if that's its quote unquote personality. But would it actually evolve that personality? So I wanted to look at the instinct that the crows and magpies have to collect shiny things, only to find out there's actually no evidence that they do that at all.
Wait, what?
So apparently crows and magpies, well, they will grab it occasionally. They have no preference for shiny things.
Huh.
Like, they build nests and they grab stuff, but whether it's shiny or not, they don't care at all. Like, no scientific evidence shows that they do it. But there's a bird that does. There's a bird that does care, and it's called the bowerbird. And what it does is basically it just picks up all this stuff to build the gaudiest nest that it possibly can. And the main thing it's attracted to is bright colors. So, like, it'll pick up, like, pieces of glass. It'll pick up, like, pieces, like, small toys and plastic things. It'll actually lay out colorful flowers outside of its nest in, like a little very vibrant garden as it can get it. So, I was saying, let's say dragons have the same instinct. And if they're attracted to, like, colorful and shiny, what are things on the scale of a dragon that kind of fit that criteria? And unfortunately for us, it's mostly man-made things, like signs, lights, like traffic lights, clothing, people dressed colorfully.
Oh no, Lady Gaga's a goner.
Lady Gaga's gone. This one's not that negative. I think bicycles are pretty shiny and about the right size to be carried off by a dragon. So maybe don't ride your bicycle around.
Are you anti-bike? Why is that not that bad?
I live in Boston. I'm anti-bike.
Yeah, it comes with the territory.
Actually, I think the thing I think fits best mentally, that I think is going to get stolen maybe the most, is the sirens on police cars, because they are, like, both the brightest and shiniest, and I think the best size to kind of just swoop down and grab. And so I just have, it's just like, I'm imagining, like, a car chase where, like, the cops are trying to get this guy, but then also suddenly dragons are descending upon the police cars and stealing their sirens.
It's part of their getaway plan.
Which is going to make law enforcement a bit trickier. And then never you mind actually trying to throw, like, a parade. If you try to throw a parade, you're just asking for trouble.
Yeah.
But yeah, I just kind of like the idea that we'll have to, like, mellow out our advertisements and our styles and our, light indicators to try to just, like, maybe not attract the dragon's attention and have it come down and swoop down and steal all our things.
One upside to all of this, actually, is that your, like, prop costs for a Chinese New Year parade goes way down. Because you don't need to get the big, like, dragon anymore. It just comes naturally.
You just have a
It
dragon.
just shows up.
Yeah, you do the rest and they'll show up.
All you do is have that same line of people just hold up, like, sparklers.
Right, and it's
then
there.
The dragon,
And
the
suddenly
dragon
they're replaced
feeds
by a
itself.
dragon.
It's perfect. But on to the main things. On to the main things about whether dragons would work. And luckily for my time insanity, I am not the only person who has asked this question. And in fact, BBC Earth actually did a whole little write-up about the different parts of dragon anatomy. And so I'm going to I did some auxiliary research around it, but I'm going to share mostly what they had here, because it's pretty damn cool. So, first question, of course, is, can dragons even fly? Because they are humongous. So the first point is, evolutionarily speaking, of whether dragons could, come to exist, is that it would be pretty much impossible for dragons to have 4 legs and wings. The way that birds and other winged animals evolve is actually that their arms would, gradually become webbed and then transition into wings as, a few stages of evolution go by. Because they could, maybe glide or swim better, or however it goes, that they can use this webbing to their advantage. So that leaves you with wings instead of arms, not in addition to arms. And there's actually almost no cases of vertebrates actually just, growing extra limbs. It's all, when they do, it's oh yeah, that was a genetic defect, not actual, evolution in place.
Interestingly, I actually saw, when I was doing my research, I actually saw something mentioned where a lot of fantasy has kind of picked up on that, and they stopped having 4 legs plus wings and started having just 2 legs, and when they're on the ground, they sort of walk on their wingtips. That's what they did in Game of Thrones. They only have 2 legs.
How recent did we figure this out?
I don't know. I mean, probably in the last 2 decades or so, because I feel only now recently do scientists have enough time to waste on finding out if dragons could exist or not. So yeah. So That's the one question. So they wouldn't. So I'm kind of ignoring that and saying, hey, it's a dragon. It's got 4 legs and wings. Like, I'm not going to go into the nitty-gritty of that. Oh man, they can't have wings because they wouldn't evolve that way. Let's just say they did. Then of course the next point is size. Could huge dragons actually fly? So this is more or less a study of how big flying animals can get. Period. And interestingly, the limiting factor for this is not actually wing strength. So it does play a role because the amount of wingspan you need to lift up a weight grows exponentially as you increase in size, because the wing beats up against, like, the square area of the wing is what's resisting, and it's the cubic area of the creature that gives it its weight. So one's increasing by a cubic root, one's increasing by a square root. So you need more and more wing, proportionally to lift up the same amount of weight. But even that isn't the limiting factor. Actually, the biggest problems that birds have with getting big is launching power. So 90% of a bird's launch power comes from its hind legs. So what birds don't need is wings. They need beefy legs to actually jump and launch themselves into the air. And so that's actually the main limiting factor. And that's why, even like the biggest birds now, like the albatross and things, they're basically at that peak of how big they can get. Just because if they get any bigger, again, you have that square root, cubic root problem, and the legs become too heavy. But that's just typically how flying animals work. It's not how every flying animal works. So the biggest flying animal known to have existed is the Quetzalcoatlus.
Hey, you covered that before.
And I've actually talked about this guy before, back in episode 41, where we talked about dinosaur pets. So it's the giant pterosaur. So it's a giant pterodactyl. And if you didn't listen to that episode, I'll tell you it is way goofier looking than you could imagine, because...
Did it have like a super long neck or something?
Yeah, so basically you just take a giraffe.
Put wings on it.
And then you connect the front legs to the back legs. Then you make the front legs like swole as all heck. And then you take the giraffe head and you just basically extend it down into a giant beak. So it has the big giraffe neck and also a giant beak going back down. So it's basically the back part of it's just all wing and the front part of it's all neck and head. But basically, this thing has a 34-foot wingspan and weighs 550 pounds. And the reason it can take off is that it uses its big, bulky legs in the front, its big, bulky wings in the front, to actually help itself take off. So it takes off with 4 legs instead of the 2, giving itself, and it's able to reuse that same muscle for the wings in the launching power. So if you have a dragon and you have, if it uses its wings to help its launch off, the amount of extra wing that you're adding to get it flying can actually help you with your launch power, can get you to scale up into these dragon sizes. So you could theoretically have a dragon big enough to take off. The one last thing, I just have a point here. Birds tend to have hollow bones because they're much lighter. And so I was kind of worried about the strength of these hollow bones compared to, the bones you might need if you need to have giant wings that need to be supported. But it turns out, just because of how it works structurally, hollow bones tend to be stronger than solid bones, just because you get the outer radius of the bone gives it most of its strength, and you can increase the radius more with the same weight by having the hollow bone. So you actually are in decent shape as far as bone strength goes. So fun fact there. Flight, I'm gonna say checkbox, could work. Now the second big one is breathing fire. So no animal on Earth breathes fire, because we probably would have heard about it.
And we probably would have killed it.
Yeah, and we probably would have killed it, potentially with fire. Potentially with the very fire it has created. But there is an animal on Earth who's very close to doing just this. Well, a bug anyway. So the aptly named bombardier beetle has a specialized defense mechanism where it is able to combine 2 highly reactive chemicals from inside 2 separate glands to fire a super hot stream of toxic spray at its enemies. So basically it has chemical A and chemical B in 2 pouches, push them together, they react violently, and it shoots out this stream. And so they studied this beetle a lot because they couldn't figure out how its mechanism worked and how it maintained that chemical reaction. And in probably one of the cooler sentences from a study about beetles, the mechanism of raconin spray pulsation was explored using anatomical studies and direct observation of explosions inside living beetles using synchrotron X-ray imaging.
Synchrotron?
Synchrotron X-ray imaging.
Do you know what synchrotron is?
I have no idea. I just love the name.
I want to know what that is.
I just saw I saw synchrotron X-ray imaging, and I'm like, I'm gonna say those words.
Synchrotron sounds like a robot DJ.
Get ready for the grooves of synchrotron. So what I find extra cool about this beetle is actually the conclusion they reached about how it's able to maintain like the precise ratios it needs to trigger these explosions in a way that, like, makes a fire spray and doesn't, either peter out or, kill the beetle. And apparently the way the valves and chambers of this beetle are structured in such a way that it's the internal explosions themselves that are mechanically opening and closing the different areas. So they know to have this much explosion in this area because when that much explosion is in that, in that valve pocket, it's forcing all like the valves around it closed. And then when it dissipates, they open up again and let more in. And so it's like actually like a mechanical system. It's not like thinking about it. It's just a mechanical way that it all works together like a very fiery Ruth Goldberg machine. Is that what they're called?
Rube Goldberg. You're close.
The Ruth Gator Bigsby machine.
I'm pretty sure, by the way, that in Reign of Fire, the way they explained the dragons breathing fire was with a like basically this system. And so
and so these beetles, like they use like chemicals, and it's actually like it's like a poison. It's like a very hot but like liquid poison spray. So if you want dragons to actually make like fireballs, you can still do it. There are enough different chemical reactions that you can make that are like, nature accessible that you could have fire come out. I didn't write down the specifics of the different ones. I saw an article that had like 6 or 7 different options that are like in the bio realm. One I particularly liked involved the dragon eating a lot of iron and then using that to make the chemicals it needs to breathe fire. I thought that was a pretty like thematic way for it to actually work. So potentially, yes, dragons could fly and they could breathe fire and they could hoard things.
And they could have 4 legs.
And they could have well, no, they can't have 4 legs. It's the one thing they can't.
Oh yeah, that's one you said you'd ignore.
Wow, when you
one.
make your checklist of dragon shit, that's not the one you expect to be least likely to happen.
Yeah, right. Because technically, if a dragon doesn't have 4 legs, it's a wyvern. So if they can't have 4 legs, they can't exist
Boom.
at all.
Yeah,
done. Game, set, match. Science.
So this one I've marked down just because it's one of those things that's like I find funny while I'm doing my research. So I was trying to look into how a dragon would impact the natural ecosystem, where if you now introduce a flying super apex predator to the world, what happens to all the animals down the chain, and basically looking it up, it's all positive, it's all good. More apex predators is a positive thing because they keep they keep the levels of the mid predators low. They keep grazing animals under control and moving. They increase the amount of biodiversity because, these animals are kind of being picked out like the weak ones. One thing I found kind of interesting is that without the apex predators, grazing animals like, gazelles and deer and all that, they would actually just stay in one spot and then just like graze it down to the ground, overpopulate, and ruin their own food supply. So you actually need the wolves and the tigers and the lions of the world to actually keep all of these herd animals moving so that they don't actually ruin one spot and kill all the plants. So they are good that way. So the apex predators are healthy in general for an ecosystem. It might actually combine more habitats together because more of the ecosystem is now, more of the food chain is now moving to avoid the dragons, including the apex predators.
Right.
Now it's not like, now you have like a lion territory, but now the lion's moving its territory to get away from the dragon, and so it's kind of mixing things up a little bit more. So that's actually pretty.
Is there any animal that actually stands a chance against the dragon?
Absolutely not. There's just I can't think of a single one that's even close. I can't think of any.
Yeah.
So that was so kind of like I was talking about how I was playing the research was I was looking up apex predators, and all it would talk about is the negative effects of apex predators leave an ecosystem, and I couldn't find anything about adding an apex predator to a system, what it would do. But then I found out, my keyword was wrong. I shouldn't Google apex predator. I should Google invasive species. See, now that word has a different connotation, not context. So yeah, invasive species are generally bad for ecosystems. And it really comes down to whether it would actually be damaging is how much dragons reproduce, which I think would be a very low value. Like they probably act more like deep sea creatures about how their range and apexness, where they are very slow to, they have very large range that they go around, and they evolve and they grow and reproduce very slowly, so there's not too many of them, and they kind of keep the balance that way. The only thing would be like farm animals, where if we have, I don't know, entire Midwestern states that are dedicated to like raising cattle, and you have a population of dragons kind of camp out right by all this easy pickings, then the dragon population might explode. And then you're gonna have some problems. And then you're breaking out the, I guess, explosive crossbows
Right.
and heroes and
Yeah.
saints. And now we're really getting medieval.
And Christian Bale.
Yeah, get Christian Bale on the phone immediately.
Yeah, so I guess my conclusion is generally they work, they can't have so many legs, and you might need Christian Bale.
I mean, you always need Christian Bale.
You always
Yeah,
need,
I know. I mean, that's a given.
Yeah,
dragons or no, you're going to need Christian Bale.
yeah.
Chris, what did you cover?
So I decided, because both of you looked at like the more traditional like European dragon, but we haven't really talked about the other type of dragon that's prevalent, and that's the Chinese style dragon. So like there's a whole nother side of the world that has its own style of dragon, and it's actually pretty different from the dragon you've been talking about. So first, what do they look like? What's their appearance? So they can come in many like animal forms. They usually come in the form of an animal. Some of them look like turtles or fish, but the most common one is it looks sort of like a snake, and it has 4 legs. It doesn't have wings.
Oh.
Yeah, no wings, but it can fly. So I don't know, kind of just throw
That
physics
one
out the
does.
door.
That one, without doing any research, I can tell you doesn't work.
Yeah, it does not work. So yeah, we're not trying to see if these physically work, but
Although there is a flying snake.
there is a flying snake. He doesn't technically fly though; he glides.
He's following with
By
style.
opening up his rib cage. That thing's fracking gross.
It is, yeah.
Yeah. If you want to learn more about that, we have an episode about that with I forget what it was.
I'm assuming training snakes.
Yeah. What if you can train snakes?
Yeah.
I don't know what episode number, but you can find it.
One of
I,
them.
I
Search for
feel
it.
like I feel like we're getting to the point now in our podcast where we have to watch how often we reference old episodes, just because now we've done so many that the research is starting to overlap.
Right.
Yeah. Yeah, so they look sort of snake-like, but if you want to get more specific about it, so they actually, like traditionally, they have 9 anatomical resemblances, is what they call them. And the reason behind that is because 9 in Chinese culture is like a lucky number, and Chinese people are like really superstitious. So they say that the dragon it's a combination. It has the antlers of a stag, the head of a camel, the eyes of a demon, the neck of a snake, the belly of a clam, the scales of a carp, the claws of an eagle, the soles of a tiger, and the ears of a cow.
Oh my god, I love the
Oh.
non-threatening ones thrown in there.
Yeah.
Yeah, the
With
clam.
the eyes of the demon
The demon.
and the belly of a clam.
I don't know why the clam is in there.
I don't get why the cow ears are in there.
Yeah, I don't know. But if you look at pictures, you can actually see these parts on them. You're like, oh yeah, that is actually there.
I don't remember the clam belly.
Well, I don't really know what a clam belly looks like, I guess. Well, it's just
I
like
can imagine what a clam
I
looks
mean,
like.
clearly it looks like a dragon's belly.
Yeah.
Come on, guys.
Obviously.
Yeah.
So that list, there's like different variations of that, but that's like one of the common ones. And then they say that all the dragons have 117 scales, because apparently that number is significant, which isn't actually that many scales. If you imagine like how big a dragon would be,
Must be
That's-
some big
the
scales,
would
I guess.
be, like,
Yeah.
pretty big.
Yeah, they're like
I don't know, it'd be like a foot, or like a
yeah,
square
like
foot.
they'd be like just
Or like-
plates.
yeah, like
They'd be like
hubcaps.
dinner plates.
Yeah. And then they usually have 4 claws. Sometimes they have 3 or 5. The dragon's actually used as a symbol for the emperor, and the ones that have 5 claws are for the emperors because they're more important.
As opposed to those basic 4-claw ones.
Yeah. Actually, 4 is considered a bad number in Chinese culture. So
So it's even worse.
even worse. And then I tried to find out exactly how big they were, but there was no real consistent information about that. It varies a lot. I imagine them being big, just because like pictures and stuff, they kind of look big. But I think it's funnier to imagine them having accurately proportioned body parts according to the body, like the animal that you're talking about.
Oh my god. Stop.
So just imagine like a camel head on a snake.
Can we draw this, please? Does any of us have any artistic talent?
No.
I don't, but I can still try.
How big? Wait, how big do clams get? If you're gonna start with the center of it's gonna be a clam belly.
Are there big clams?
They're probably sort of big clams, but big is like a foot most.
I'm Googling. Hold on.
How big? Biggest clam?
Giant clam. They can weigh more than 440 pounds and measure as much as 47 inches across. So that's like 4 feet.
Whoa. Okay, so let's say 4 feet. So I can have a 4-foot belly.
Also, I'm gonna student here. I did look up the clam belly because I really wanted to see a dopey looking clam belly on a dragon. What they mean by clam belly is just that those like yellow ridges that you see everybody draws on dragons.
Okay.
So that ridginess is the clam.
Okay, got it. Yeah, so that's what the Chinese dragon looks like. But what is their reputation compared to the European dragon? So European dragons, as Ben went through, they're usually considered pretty bad, and they're like associated with destruction. They kill people, and they're creatures that need to be slain in order to protect the people. And that's actually the complete opposite of what Chinese dragons are. So Chinese dragons represent power and good fortune. They're considered good, they're well respected, and they're seen as protectors of people.
Just like in Mulan.
Yeah, just like in Mulan, Eddie Murphy. And just dragons in general are like pretty favorable. Like people tend to like them. So dragons are one of the 12 zodiac animals. And the year of the dragon is actually the most popular year. And it's so popular that it's actually influenced the fertility rate of like how many babies are born in the year of the dragon compared to other years.
Oh, that's so
Wow.
fantastic.
So, as an example, in 2010, which is not the year of the dragon, it's the year of the tiger, Taiwan's fertility rate dropped to 0.9 kids per woman. And that's because, so the tiger is the natural enemy of the dragon.
Oh my.
In this lore, they're always seen like fighting each other and stuff. So that 0.9 number is like a low number. And then 2 years later, in 2012, when it was the year of the dragon, it spiked up to 1.27. So people were like trying to time it to get their baby born in the year of the dragon.
That's amazing.
And that's like a consistent pattern too throughout the last few decades. So they're well respected. And then the European dragons are associated with like fire, and that's like the element that they're associated with. They breathe fire, obviously. But dragons are more associated with water. So they usually live in like bodies of water. They are like put in the domain. So they rule over a body of water. So there's like the 4 dragon kings that like rule the 4 seas. And then dragons tend to like have the ability to control weather, like water related weather.
Ooh.
Yeah. So that's like one of their, I guess it's just magic. There's no real explanation behind it.
That's okay. They can just have magic.
Yeah, so they just have magic. So we've looked at what happens if the European dragon exists in real life. But what happens if these Chinese dragons exist in real life? They won't try to destroy everything to start with. They'll kind of just, they'll coexist with everyone, and they'll probably live in the ocean. And I think there's 2 ways that this could probably go, depending on their level of intelligence. There's no like indication of how smart they are, if they can talk, or if they can like reason with people, or if they're just like base level animals.
Yeah.
So I think the first option is if they're just like base level animals and they act like animals, they're probably going to get domesticated just because they have the ability to control weather. So if you control them, then you control the weather.
And then when you control the weather, you control the world.
Well, I mean, it's really valuable if you're a farmer, because then you can control the weather and you can make it rain when you need to make it rain.
Or you can take over the world.
Or you can grow crops.
Both valid options.
Ben, the peacekeeper
peacemaker,
over there. They're both good options. Everybody's a winner.
See, the dragons are like not evil beings, so if someone's trying to take them over, I guess if they're not smart, then they might still be exploited, but they'll try to resist. And then the second option is if they are smart, they won't get domesticated. They'll probably try to partner up with farmers and like meteorologists, because like, I don't know, they want to help people. And I think they'll probably like they'll make deals with like the government. They'll probably have a seat at the UN where they can like plan where to put weather.
They'll probably have a seat at the UN when discussing dragons is the essence of this podcast.
Yeah. I mean, weather is such a huge
It is.
aspect of the world, and if they can control it, then they're like the most valuable part of the UN.
What is your negotiating position when you're like, the wet dragons are like, I think we're gonna look to get, some trade deals, and we want this advantageous thing for our country, and then we're like, I don't think we can do that. And then like as you're disagreeing with them, like storm clouds roll in and like thunder rumbles outside, and it's like, what's your negotiating position? You don't have one.
You just slowly open an umbrella.
You see, I don't know if the dragons would necessarily side with anyone. So the one thing that they do want probably is for all the tigers to die, because the tiger is his mortal enemy. So if you want to get on the dragon's good side, you got to kill some tigers.
The new UN uniform is tiger pelt.
Yeah. So that was my conclusion. The dragons will be in the UN, the tigers will die.
Checks out.
It's pretty good. All right, guys, you ready for a would you rather?
I am.
Mm-hmm.
Chris, I'm going to start you on this one because this relates to your answer.
Okie doke.
From the big book of would you rather questions, number 387. Would you rather be able to manipulate weather or speak to the dead?
Those are two very different things.
Those are incredibly different powers.
And we've done an episode on manipulating the weather. I think I said I would do cloud art, but I don't think that's actually what I would do.
So you lied that whole episode.
I think I would team up with farmers. I don't know. I'm into farmers now. So there's an obvious benefit to being able to control the weather.
Yeah, how
being able to
actually
talk to
useful
the
is
dead,
talking to the
you
dead?
can't. It's not. Yeah, that doesn't really seem that useful. I mean, it's cool.
What if you were a murder lawyer?
Or detective.
Well, I think murder lawyers make more money than detectives.
So the problem is, all right, I think you'd have to be, there's an issue on both counts. Because there's a difference between being able to talk to the dead and being able to make the dead speak. Because...
Speak to the dead. Speak to the dead.
Right.
I think it's just you.
My point is that I don't think that, like, other people can hear the dead talk back to you.
No. You don't have to get them on the stand, Ben.
But see, I think
You
you
could just be
kind of
like-
do have to.
No, Ben, you literally just like, how'd you get murdered? They're like, oh, he came in at exactly 4:35 p.m. and he murdered me with the knife, and then he did this,
It will
this, and
help
that.
you
just
find the evidence.
Yeah.
I guess it would help you find the
Like
evidence.
it won't.
That's fair.
Yeah, talking to him won't be the evidence, but he'll help you find the evidence.
Detective is more helpful than lawyer, because I don't think that the dead guy told me is admissible in a court of law.
Yeah, but you just find out the truth, and then you know how to lawyer to get there. You have to do some good lawyering, but you make more money as a lawyer than a detective, I think.
It's probably true.
All about the money.
Well, we gotta maximize money.
What if you're the detective who always solves the crime because they can talk to the dead guy? Then you're like a thing.
I mean, there must be a TV show about this, right? This has to be a TV show.
Actually, yeah, this 100% has to be a TV show.
What's really funny is that if you could speak to the dead and you decided to take the entertainment route of like, oh, I'm gonna be a psychic and connect people to their dead relatives, then you'd probably do worse off as someone who could actually speak to the dead than someone who could just manipulate people.
Right? Yeah.
Probably.
Because people don't want to hear what the dead actually think about them.
Right. They want to hear good stuff about themselves.
Yeah, they just want to hear good stuff about them, that they're doing well. There would be a bit of comfort, just like mortality-wise, just being able to be like, so what's it like? And then they would tell you, and then you would know.
Oh yeah, that's true.
I mean, that could also be very bad.
Yeah, it could be
I
bad.
guess
then
that
you
could
could
be
know.
the opposite of a comfort.
Right.
Yeah, it's just like you just talk to them like, whatever you do, don't die.
Right.
And you're like, oh shiz.
Well, okay.
Oops.
All right, so here's another question about the talking to the dead. How do I put this? How intact do they have to be to talk to them?
Let's say it's a ghost. Intact. You get a fully intact ghost.
Okay. Where do you have to go to find this ghost? Like, are you able to find...
Just, like, summon them?
Like, I'm assuming you can't just summon them. Because then that's clearly the answer, because you could just summon, like, any famous dead person to, like, just chit-chat with.
Yeah, that'd be cool if you could chit-chat with any dead person.
But I think...
Any, like, famous dead person.
I think as long as you could identify where they are somewhere and go to them, it's still pretty good.
Yeah, let's say like 1,000 feet from wherever their corpse is.
Or if they're just like walking around the world like normal people, but they're dead. So you can't summon them to you, but you can try to like search them out like a normal person.
Yeah, you can like go to places where they would probably be. Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
Like a detective. It's all coming back together.
Anyone seen Washington? I need to ask him some stuff about the Constitution.
Even still, I don't see this being that useful compared to controlling the weather.
All right, let's briefly on controlling the weather. Are we talking like full-on Storm from X-Men, like weather powers, or just like you can enact climate change?
Let's say you can change the forecast to reasonable. I don't think you get hurricane power.
Yeah, I'm imagining you can just make normal weather patterns, but you can do it whenever you want.
Right.
You can like get up to like regular thunderstorm.
Yeah.
You could do a lot of good if you can manipulate the weather. I guess if you have an ability like manipulate weather or speak to the dead, you have like a world-changing power, and manipulating weather might be the more positive one.
Yeah.
Because you could help out areas that are, experiencing droughts, or, build up areas by improving their climate a little bit.
Farmers.
You and farmers.
Well, here's the thing, Chris. How much weather can you manipulate? Like, if you're just in one field, in one town, you can manipulate the weather there. You can't help farmers that much.
I guess we didn't specify if it's the entire world that you can control or if it's just in your area.
I would imagine just your area.
Yeah, like you can't. If you do the whole world, that's like a whole other crazy power.
Yeah.
Okay. I mean, you could still travel to other farmers.
Did we like get a farmers only sponsorship and no one told me? Like, I don't. A lot of farmer talk this episode.
Oh man, did I forget the ads? Hold on, I have my my copy here. Hold on.
I mean, if people know that this is your power, the farmers are gonna find you.
Oh, see, now you made it sound ominous. Oh, they're gonna find you.
It's true.
It is true.
They will find you.
Okay, so all right. I feel like the right answer here is control the weather, but I kind of feel like. Oh, actually, wait. Important question. You choose when you can talk to the dead, right?
Yeah.
Okay, I'm not just like always gonna be talking to you forever because that sounds pretty bad.
No,
Okay.
not that crazy. Not this ironic punishment.
Right. This isn't a monkey paw situation. Is what you're saying?
Yeah.
All right.
Do people know that you have these powers, or is this something that's hidden?
I assume it's hidden.
I think you would be like, you could tell people about it, but whether they believe you or not is a question.
I feel like they wouldn't believe either of them.
So I think that you could get people to believe you. It would just take you like half a year per person to get them to believe you.
I don't
so.
know if you could ever get them to believe you're talking to the dead.
I think you could. I mean, that one's actually almost simpler, where you just get, I guess you hope they have a dead relative that you can talk to.
I guess, yeah, you could ask them something that only the relative would know. Yeah. All right, that would work.
Ask me something only the real dead Andrew Jackson would know.
Hey, Andrew Jackson, were you a fan of Hamilton? No.
We've gone back and forth enough. It's time for us to decide. I'll start. I never start. I'm gonna say I would rather speak to the dead, because I think the combined knowledge of the people that you could talk to outweighs the benefits of being able to manipulate the weather. Plus, I feel like it'd be cool to just like chit chat with like whoever you want.
Yeah. Chris, what's your thought?
So in the beginning I was leaning towards weather, but it is kind of closer for me now after talking about it. I guess I'll still go weather.
Oh boy, now I gotta be the split the vote, huh? I
mean, it's not like the would you rather happens to all of us if you vote on it.
So I think that like from a value perspective, weather is the right choice, but I think I'm still gonna go with speaking to the dead.
Awesome. And you know what else is awesome? You guys, the listeners, you guys are awesome. And you know what's even awesomer than that awesome? You guys, the listeners, after you've subscribed to our Patreon at www.patreon.com/absurdhypotheticals. This is the place where you can directly support the show with your hard-earned dollars, and you get awesome bonus content. Like every month, we do a exclusive behind-the-scenes episode, early access to episodes, ability to vote on things related to the show, and also like discounts in our merch store, all the good things. If you want more absurd hypotheticals in your life, go to the Patreon, put money in the box, the digital box, not the actual box. If someone is holding up a box while you're on the Patreon website and they say put money in it, don't do it. That $5 is going to end up at somebody's office, in somebody's desk, and it's going to be a whole thing. So go to www.patreon.com/absurdhypotheticals and click all the required buttons to go do that. And after you've done that, you get to wait a whole week until you hear us next week where we answer the following question. Would an underwater city work?